This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised.
It's time to journey down the River Lethe with the crew of Star Trek Discovery, where you will see magic to make the sanest man go mad. But since the butcher's knife cares not for the lamb's cry, you can choose your pain. Either turn away or join us. For into the forest I go on the journey with these kings of pop culture archaeologists. On today's episode of a podcast of Rare Antiquities, where indeed context is for kings. But before you get too complacent, just remember, Civis Pacem Para Bellum. I am Specialist Jeff, and I will be your host this evening.
I'm naked Klingon bitch, whoever she is. This is Harry.
Oh, it's a spitting image. I thought she looked familiar.
I'm Nathan, freshly back from his Domjot tournament.
And I'm Shuttle Pilot Till, who hopefully doesn't follow the path of all the shuttle pilots in Star Trek Discovery.
First red shirt.
I am wearing a red shirt today for some reason. Yeah. Oh, God, no.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, welcome back to the show, guys. Obviously, today we are tackling the first half of the inaugural season of Star Trek Discovery. We already did the pilot episode in a previous episode, so we're going to be covering episodes 2 through 9, I believe, is what we've got here. We're not going to do our typical trivia section, or obviously we don't have enough time to get into the synopsis for it. So what I want to open up with here is we're just going to do a little bit of a roundtable and just kind of want to get everybody's opinion on what the heck is Star Trek Discovery about. And somebody's torturing Lieutenant Tyler.
Was that Chloe?
Yeah, that was our little Vok in the corner. Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Okay. No, it's good. It adds a little flavor to the proceedings here. So I just want to ask everybody, what, just in your own words, what's Star Trek Discovery about? We'll do a little roundtable there. You cannot say that you agree with the person who went before. You got to come up with something new. So, Harry, I'll let you start. What is this show all about?
Shit, I don't know. Really. I just don't think that it's found its footing, at least from my perspective. That's a really hard one to nail down at this point. You would think that just from the title perspective, it would have been more on exploration. There is an exploration on certain characters that are happening here, which is par for the course for Star Trek and necessary, but other themes, I'm not sure as of yet. So, it's just still early days. I'm not sure I can give an honest answer right now.
Nathan, how about you? What's it about?
What it's about is we are witnessing a huge battle in the writer's room for Star Trek Discovery of writers who want to create this mystery and then other writers that want to do traditional Star Trek and other writers who have a weird alien fetish. That's what I think. I cannot actually pin down what this show is about because there's some aspects about it that are very Star Trek, and then other aspects it's like I'm watching not Lost Space, but the show Lost, but it's in space.
In space, yeah. Andrew.
So far, it's following a traditional redemption character arc while trying to be like modern TV while juggling the lore of Star Trek, but it really has been the tale of two Star Treks if you compare the first 2 episodes versus the remaining 7. So I think it's finally found its footing, but we still don't fully know what it's about yet. I think we'll find out after the mid-season finale, but yeah, still not entirely sure.
Hold on. Did you watch the mid-season finale, or did I understand that correctly?
I mean, we'll find out more the next episode following the mid-season finale.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we're fully caught up.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that this show is definitely a battle, and it feels to me like it's about trying to do what you think is right, but battling against what you feel in the moment is how to react versus how you think you should be performing or doing what you think you should. I think that kind of cuts to the heart of Star Trek a little bit, which is striving for the better humanity. But I see that kind of coming out in a lot of aspects of the show here. But I just kind of wanted to get an idea of what everybody's sort of impressions were on a different level as opposed to just a plot
I just want to add one thing. I think I agree with something that Andrew just said is I felt, and maybe you guys can touch on this too, Jeff and Nathan, Nathan. I feel that there was definitely a shift in focus, quality, I wouldn't say quality, but tonality and just writing after the first 2 episodes, which that's what we talked about previously. I felt that the show has been radically different. I mean, it would have to be. Like, we're not saying it should be something as similar as what we saw in the first 2 episodes, but I just felt that the show feels like it's a different personality completely. I don't know about you guys.
Absolutely. I even feel like Burnham is almost like a different character now.
Almost. I would say so.
Yeah. I mean, not completely, but I haven't had a chance to actually rewatch everything, but I feel that her character has gone through kind of a weird shift, and I don't know if that was intentional because of the death of Georgiou, but there's kind of like a clear demarcation line between the end of the pilot versus the rest of the series.
That was on purpose, though, was it not? I mean, the opening, just even how the season is structured, we basically have a show that has a 2-hour movie intro, and then the series kind of starts.
But you don't think it was more of a Fuller thing? Because that Fuller had his hands all over the first 2 episodes in terms of writing. And then
no, I don't think so, because the show now, those first 2 episodes, how cinematic it is, that's not Brian Fuller at all. He's much more contemplative and slow moving. So in fact, episode 3, Context is for Kings, which I just rewatched tonight, that felt more like Brian Fuller to me, with some of the introductions, like throwing a lot of mysteries at you right away. That was more
No, I understand.
His style, right?
Yeah.
And I think, so I don't know what happened there or as far as production order, what the network wanted to do, but at any rate, it seemed pretty clear to me that they wanted to open the series with a bang, sort of a 90-minute movie, if you will, and then the series proper would start. So I thought it was on purpose. That was the impression I was under.
I just out of curiosity, Andrew, because you weren't here with us first 2 episodes, maybe just within like a minute or two, what did you think of those 2 before we get into the rest of the episodes?
After watching the first 9, like the first 2 caught my interest, but I was definitely nervous after the first half of the pilot. Just like some of the hokey scenes that we saw and just the interactions weren't as great as we've seen in the past. And it felt more like JJ Star Trek than the Star Trek that we all fell in love with on the TV shows. But then as the regular episodes started coming out every week, and I did feel as if there was a massive tone shift, and it caught our interest so much more every single week. Like Wesley's hooked on it, and it just seems like each episode keeps getting better and better. But the first 2 just seem a little out of place. And it's just to set up this mutiny that occurs and the Klingon War. And it's fun from like a popcorn perspective, but it's very different from the other 2. So.
Yeah, but that's on purpose, though, don't you think? Like, they didn't, that's no accident.
No, and I think it's to try and get audiences to watch the show. And I think for those who like follow Star Trek, like we're going to watch it regardless. But for people who want to grab onto something, especially in like today's age, getting something with action is something that's important. But it feels like 2 separate seasons. Not to say that I didn't like it, but it's definitely started to find its feet a lot quicker than other Star Treks in the first season, which I'm very happy about.
I think you raised a good point there, Andrew. It certainly does seem to hit the ground running a bit more competently than other Trek shows in the first season, for sure. So,
oh yeah,
Code of Honor, anybody?
Oh yeah, we've talked about that a couple of times. We don't need to go down.
We don't need to go down there. Since Andrew kind of brought it up, I know we probably touched on it a little bit, but I think it is important to revisit, because as we see the Discovery proper and the sets and how the regular course of the show is being filmed, the design similarities or the perhaps cinematography similarities to JJ's Star Trek. Why don't we revisit that question a little bit? So Nathan, maybe I'll start with you. We know that the pilot definitely contained the DNA of JJ's Star Trek in there. So how do you feel about that now in the context of the regular episodes now?
I felt it was a little less on the nose. Maybe part of it is, I think if you're looking for it, you see some of those elements there. But at the same time, because they have to modernize the show, they kind of maybe did it and like, well, okay, JJ did it and this thing seemed to work and whatnot. I think the production value is still very good, and we're not getting a ton of lens flares all over the place. They've toned it down a little bit. Well, the other thing that's actually not very JJ is that things do seem much darker, whereas everything in JJ verse is, like, I think a little more brilliantly lit. And I think they make better use of some of the classic sounds from Trek in a much more natural way. And so it's recognizable, but there's something that a little more that fits a little bit better. Whereas with JJ verse, they'll use a sound and it's so obvious that, like, oh, this is a callback to the original series. The cinematography, I felt like I was watching like almost like a better version of, not better, but a better production of Deep Space Nine if they had more money. A lot of the neat dark lighting and sort of the maybe better camera angles and such.
Yeah. So, Harry, where do you kind of land on that? I know you're not a huge fan of lens flare.
Lens flare, I mean, that's JJ, but it's not just JJ. I mean, I really don't care about lens that much. It's more just of a running gag that we talk about or that geeks talk about. In terms of his influence, I don't think there's been much influence of JJ Trek since the original 2 episodes. So for me, that's been a very welcome change. I felt there was a bit more of a, even though some of the action set pieces and some of the way the kinetic camera angles were used in the pilot, that was more JJ, and then the final fight. But since then, it's become its own thing. To me, there's still some hints of a Battlestar Galactica, like the new one, more of a influence there with respect to JJ Trek, and maybe hints of DS9. But I'm not sure if it's going to... We can talk about it, where we think the story is going to go and what we think of the story so far. Because for me, I'm not sure if they're, as you mentioned, whether we were shown some hints of things, and I'm not sure if it's going to follow through on certain thread points or not. It's just right now I feel maybe this is just world building and that's what they're doing. And if that's the case, a good thing. I have a million thoughts, but with respect to JJ, I don't think there's been much influence of him beyond the first 2 episodes.
Right, I agree. I got a couple points to make. So, Andrew, why don't you weigh in on that as well, since you are the one who brought it up?
Well, I think Nathan and Harry kind of summed it up perfectly in that, like, the first 2 episodes, I think it also tying to what you mentioned earlier, it was intentional. Like, have a JJ themed direction and have a look at the bridge such that people who are new to Star Trek over the last, it's been 10 years, crazy to think about nearly, have those people warm up to Star Trek while people who are familiar with the series tune into it just because, we're all going to. But after that, like, besides the aesthetic look of it and just like the modern aspect of Star Trek, I haven't seen any J influence since episode 2, which is nice. I like that. I like old Star Trek.
Yes.
I like how they found their own style. I don't know if you guys noticed this, and there's a couple pieces there, but I actually find it very reminiscent of the motion picture series. Does anybody else have that feeling? Like,
you're talking about the original series movies or the motion picture itself?
Yeah, like all of them, like the original series movies. Like, we'll say like 2 to 6, because the first one obviously is very different from a design standpoint.
I can see hints of what you're saying. The way it's structured, I would say.
Yeah, I just mean there's hints here and there. I don't know if you guys noticed, but when they go to like red alert, it's the same alert sign from the films, from those films.
Oh, you're talking about like the production.
Yeah, some of the production details. That's right. Yeah, just the lighting, the sets. I mean, obviously the uniforms are different, but it feels that way to me. And once I saw that, I couldn't stop seeing it kind of everywhere on the show.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Nathan touched on it. It was more... I find that more with the sound effects, more than anything else, like with the transporter beams or the clangs of the alerts and the guns, the phasers, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
communicators, the doors.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit. Why don't we talk about our new crew, since we've met everybody now? And obviously, I think the characters are going to factor into a lot of conversation. So why don't we jump into those guys first? So, Andrew, why don't you start us off here? Do you have a favorite so far? How did you enjoy some of the characters' introductions and, any other sort of general thoughts on this new Star Trek crew?
I should probably, like, by obligation, say that I like Tilly the best. I've really enjoyed her character.
I was going to ask that question. Is Tilly your favorite, Tilly?
Tilly's my favorite. I love Tilly. She's fucking dope.
She's awesome. I have a hunch of, like, where we're going to go with the next few episodes, which is going to make, I think, her character even better. But for me, my favorite, Lorca. Just the portrayal by Jason Isaacs has been awesome. And it's just this, you're always questioning his intentions. And so every week we're having conversations. I'm like, I just want him to be so good. But I know he's bad, but I know he's good at the same time. But I think his portrayal of a captain who's very unlike any of the captains that we've had in the series on a regular basis, just the acting from him has been fantastic. Like, even just like the little bits that they throw in, like on the last episode where he has to just pause and put his little eye device in his eye so he can see the explosion, just because like he's so much of a badass. Like, I love how Lorca's been, but the cast overall, I think has been a great cast. And I could talk for tons of time about people like Saru, but I've really enjoyed the development of the cast so far.
Yeah. Nathan, what about you?
Well, my favorite is also Tilly, actually. I like this weird, almost autistic type of character that's been introduced, and kind of like everyone tends to be a little bit serious on the show, with maybe the exception of Tyler. So I don't know. I think she brings like this neat energy to the show. I also like the way that the characters have been introduced, because in every other Star Trek series, like, your main 7 characters, boom, here they are. They say they say each other's name like at least once a scene, so that you get that, you memorize that name. And so this is kind of, I felt like this was a more modern approach to introducing the main cast, because like the way that the other Star Trek series, like, because they even did it in Enterprise, which isn't even really that old, and it felt like a very strained, like, well, this is the way Star Trek does it. So far, I like everyone, and Lorca is definitely like this weird oddball where you like him, he's cool, but he also has this weird vibe like he's actually the secret villain of the show in a way. I do also want to say that like the characters I don't like are all the Klingons. We'll get to that, I'm sure, but I got to throw that out there that there's nothing for me to hang on to there.
Yeah, we'll circle back to the Klingons for sure. Harry, what are you digging so far, or not?
Well, I mean, from a perspective just from following the protagonist, I mean, I like Burnham, but she's not right now my favorite character. I'm more interested in Saru and Lorca, as you guys have kind of hinted at and talked about. Lorca's definitely, as you said, the oddball. He's an enigma. We're still trying to figure him out. Is he going to secretly become the villain, or just some kind of anti-hero? Or, you say, is this a lead up to Section 31? Or is he just kind of some rogue guy who just has ESD? I don't know how he can captain's chair if he's kind of like that, but that's a separate issue. Saru I also find interesting. I enjoy most of the cast too. Even Tyler coming, I think all is kind now in the last episode, but I've enjoyed Tyler's scenes. I think just like that's from the main characters, Tilly's okay. I mean, I'm glad we're seeing a kind officer. I think the least compelling people that have been there, and it's not because they're gay, it's because Stamets is just kind of off-putting for me a little bit. But that's okay, because you need some kind of diverse emotional performances from your cast, so I enjoy that. They're all not nice guys, and they all have their quirks, and also the Doc, who's also his part. I just don't think it generated a lot of time for him. He's been okay in terms of acting, they're okay, but I'm just not attached or as interested in those characters. But I'd say Lorca and Saru are my favorites so far.
That's a good answer. I like everybody a lot. They haven't given Dr. Culber a lot to do. I don't think he's
what's the name?
I didn't even... Dr. Culber. Hugh Culber.
Pew or Hugh?
Hugh.
Hugh.
No, it's you.
It's you. That's
you.
it. Hugh.
Other than Lorca, I couldn't even tell you the first name of any of these characters.
Well, I can tell you everybody. We got Ash Tyler. We got Sylvia Tilly. We got Paul Stamets. We got, I don't remember Burnham's first name.
How can you not know the one that stands out the most?
Joking. Come on. Saru doesn't have a first name. It's actually Harry Saru.
Harry Saru.
I actually like
Stamets
I like Stamets quite a bit because he's such an asshole, especially at the start. And
why is it that you tend to gravitate towards the assholes? I'm wondering, is that...
Well, you're lucky I do, otherwise we wouldn't have been friends for the last 20 years.
Okay, shade.
I'm just kidding, man.
That's okay. I could be an asshole.
No,
I'm your kind of asshole.
The reason why I do is because it's hard to pull off that character being an asshole and still making that character somebody you want to watch. And especially when you have them as part of your Star Trek crew. We've seen assholes on Star Trek before, but it's usually like an admiral or a commodore if we're talking about the original series. And he softens up a little bit, so he has a bit of an arc there. It's neat to see that he's kind of a dick, but you see the situation that he's been put in, and they layer a few things on him there to humanize him, soften him up a little bit. So I thought that's great. I don't really expect it to go anywhere, but I enjoyed his performance. I thought he was pretty good. I liked Ash Tyler quite a bit as well. Obviously, we've got a bit of a journey to go with him, but I think overall they've definitely done a really good job. I'm not a big fan. I know he's not a series regular. I'm not a big fan of James Frayne as Sarek.
Oh, he's the worst of the bunch. That Sarek episode, I guess we can get into it later. I think that was the worst one we've seen yet.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that assessment as well.
Actually, a quick question before you move on, Jeff. What about your favorite bridge no-name guy or gal?
I like the chick with the messed up face and like the fucking cyborg implants. Like she was in the pilot, but I don't remember her name.
No, yeah.
Oh, and she's like Lobot now?
Yeah. So I love that.
I like Black and White Nebula.
Yeah. Who is that?
I don't know.
No, but she does have a name. Lorca called her by name in one episode. I forgot, I didn't catch it because he told her to take the bridge or something like that. And then it was like, I think the only time she ever even spoke in the whole series so far. And it was
Arium or Arium or something like that.
So we're just doing androids now?
Yeah. Lieutenant Commander Orion.
What about random bridge officer dude is called out by like Harry Mudd? That was pretty. I like that.
I love that.
Yeah. What'd you think of Harry Mudd so far?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about Harry Mudd. Yeah.
Ooh, better than I thought he would be. When he was announced, I wasn't quite sure about it, and I'm not sure if it's Rainn Wilson. I like the character of Harry Mudd, but better.
So you like the character, but you don't like Rainn Wilson?
It's more just the difference between it's struggling between the original series portrayal versus I like Rainn Wilson. It just
there's no continuity there whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think taking that out and enjoying it for the performance that it is, and I think that's just a struggle that people who are way too passionate about Star Trek have, is like letting go of the past.
But then why would you name him Harry Mudd? Like, why, if he's so such a radical departure from what we've seen?
Just for that transporter scene. Just for that one. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I guess I could weigh in on Harry Mudd. I was very surprised that they were going to use him, and I was worried when they did, but I did like him. I mean, I like Rainn Wilson quite a bit. And I thought his Harry Mudd was good. I mean, Harry, you have a point. Like, there's not a lot of continuity there, so what's the point? But, I mean, I guess you could say that about the whole show. Nothing really looks like Star Trek, so why call it that? I mean, I guess it's more of just a nod to let us know what time period we're in. It's not super relevant, but I don't know. I mean, there's a point where, like, I want to try to let go of that kind of stuff anyway. They want to put Harry Mudd in there? Fine. Make the episode good. Put the guy in it. Give him a good performance. Give him a good part to play. Fine. Call him Harry Mudd. Call him whatever you want. It's not like they made an Englishman a Sikh or something like that. Not that they'd ever do that, of course, but, I mean, that would just be silly.
A Sikh who's a Mexican now all of a sudden.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, come on. What kind of world are we living in here? That would just be silly.
I feel the same way, where I need to, let go of certain continuity issues. So I liked this weird, murderous Harry Mudd. And, he's kind of I think I said it before, like, he's kind of like the Heath Ledger to Cesar Romero in terms of, like, Joker portrayals. Because Harry Mudd is kind of this buffoonish character in the original series. And so I like this. And he's still, a bit of a clown, but, he has this real, evil streak to him, which I like. So, I mean, I think if you can accept the continuity error, if you will, in how the ships look, what the ships look like and the technology levels, then it's like, well, okay, I can kind of buy into this different interpretation of the character. But it also, I mean, Harry brought up a good point, like, why even have the character? And I think that goes to at least one of my problems with the show is, like, why do we even have a prequel? Like, just make it a continuation after Voyager or something like that. Like, have it much further in the future or something. So the prequel idea, I'm sure we'll kind of get to it, is, I think, problematic in a few areas. Harry Mudd being one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll weigh in on Harry Mudd. I mean, I like Rainn Wilson as well, mainly because of The Office. It'd be nice if Steve Carell pops in. That'd be a little duo there. I think that's
Commodore Decker.
Yeah, Commodore Decker.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
But that aside, I didn't like his first appearance when he was in the jail cell with Tyler and Lorca. I said, if this is what we're getting from him, oh boy, not a fan. But I enjoyed the second appearance he had. I was surprised it was that quick of a turnaround. He came back that quickly. I thought that was a fun episode. He was pretty good in that one. But I still had issues with how much control he had over that whole situation. That's a separate issue.
Yeah, that was kind of a convenient tech issue in order to, just drive the plot along. So that had some problems with it. I agree with you on that one there for sure. Maybe talk about a couple of the episodes here. I mean, we have an overall arc of the Klingon War, the start of the Klingon War, and we also have the more traditional episodic nature of Star Trek, where we have contained episodes and sort of combinations of the two. So, one thing I wanted to ask is, maybe not what was your favorite episode necessarily, but what do you think was the episode where it felt the most like a Star Trek series to you? Nathan, why don't you lead us off on that one?
Well, I think my favorite episode is probably the repeat Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. Even though, I mean, this is a rehash.
Which one's that? You guys fucking know the episode.
That's the one we were just talking about, the Harry Mudd.
That's the time repeat. What was the original TNG episode?
Just fucking say cause and effect, then I'll know.
Cause and effect. Thank you. I couldn't remember. And it's been done to death in like 100 series after that. I mean, it drives me mad. But I kind of like that they just sort of got right to it. It's like, yeah, I'm repeating, this timeline, stuff like that. And I just kind of liked Harry Mudd, like the way he would kill Lorca over and over again.
Oh, that was great. That was the best part.
I mean, and it was a fun episode, but it was weirdly dark. And I thought, okay, we're getting some, I thought we got some nice character development with Burnham, like a little bit, wasn't a ton. I felt like one of the better Star Trek-esque episodes was, what was the episode where they go to the planet? That's the one in Latin, right?
Isn't that the In the Forest one or whatever?
No, that's the Latin one.
last
that's the
one,
last
yes.
Why the
Jeff,
fuck
you
do they
say
say
it.
forest? Fuck.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a
Yeah,
John
the names of
Muir
these
quote. I love it.
episodes are kind of driving me nuts. Okay, I looked it up. I'm even reading it. I can't even say it.
Cetus
Anyways,
Pecum Parabellum is how
thank you. All right. Sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
It does.
So, so, but I kind of like this. It was sort of a neat callback to an original series episode. And I thought, I wish we actually had more of Saru in this and his breakdown of like him being so scared all the time and the way he was willing to portray his crewmates like that. It's unfortunate it came at the end of the episode, but I thought that was like a really interesting aspect of that character. It's an odd character to have on a show that your main cast, they're in the midst of a war, trying to win a war, and he is so afraid of everything. I thought I wanted more of that, and I hope they explore that more. And I definitely felt like a more Star Trek episode.
I'll weigh in here next. I really thought that was an important episode from a Star Trek perspective as well. It did feel very Star Trek, very convenient plot devices, unfortunately, which hurt it for me. But that exploration of Saru's fear and what he was willing to do in order to not, be afraid for the first time in his entire existence. Because first you kind of think they got like a mind control thing going on, and that wasn't the case. That was him the whole time. So that was a neat little twist. So that was great. When I first saw, just to like reference another episode when I really watched, I thought, okay, now we've got some Star Trek going on here, was, another Harry, just to bother you with another episode titled The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry. And that felt great because that's where we saw Burnham really start to feel some empathy for the tardigrade. Yeah. And
that's my favorite episode.
Yeah. So why don't you go into that a little bit for us then, Harry?
This is the same episode because that kind of happened over a course of a couple episodes. So I just want to nail down the episode right. Is this the same one where she releases the tardigrade?
At the end of that episode, yes.
That's my favorite episode, even though Harry Mudd appears in that episode, and I think that's the prison Lorca and Tyler. I think that's the weakest part of the episode. But I appreciated the analytical approach they were taking to the network that Miss and Burnham were discovering. Even her approach and her little bit of a conflict with Saru, and I think that relationship has been my favorite so far in the series, is her relationship with Saru that we've seen, and I like their battling and how he's a little still scared. He trusts her, and now he's in charge. She has to convince him that we can't use the tardigrade, and he says something very logical and sound that, hey, I've got to save the captain plus so many other souls in this vessel versus one creature. I got to make this choice. And if I'm in those shoes, I feel for the creature. And I think he did too. And I love the line he says, oh, well, I'll accept not the judgment of history, like that's a Picard line, but I'll accept, whatever consequences that happen, but I have to do what I have to do. I just enjoyed that episode, and I felt that was the most Star Trek out of bunch. And it was a feel-good moment when the tardigrade was released and, came back to life and then just ventured off his own Star Trek of his own.
Off to the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah.
To the Mushroom Kingdom, yeah.
Tardigrade on some kind of Star Trek.
I think you actually made a really good point there, that relationship between Burnham and Saru. That is a really interesting relationship that they have there, and we've never really explored that type of relationship on Star Trek before. So that's neat because they're sort of in conflict, but they also understand each other to a certain extent. It's playing it really well. Andrew, what about you? What's been a good Star Trek moment for you so far?
It's tough to add beyond what you guys have already talked about. Like, I think there's a little flavor of Star Trek, like different types of Star Trek throughout the first season, which I really enjoyed. Like the quote unquote, not the time travel one, but the one where they keep going back with Harry Mudd. Like that was fun as a one-off episode that brought back a lot of memories from the next gen. But for me, it was the release of the tardigrade. And I remember I don't normally get all sappy during TV shows, but that was a moment when I looked at wrestling and I'm like, it feels like Star Trek. Like I haven't had that feeling since I liked Enterprise, but it hasn't felt like Star Trek since that time. And like just to see an episode and just the way that they pulled it off. And yeah, I just love how you can find different elements of Star Trek within each of the different episodes. But when you guys talk about the relationship between Saru and Burnham, I like that as well. Like there's good character development, but there's different character development from what we used to in the past. I know I'm bouncing all over the place because I've enjoyed every single episode. And it's a matter of what you're looking for, but there's elements of Star Trek in everything, which is why the series has been great so far.
So why don't we talk about that a little bit, since maybe that'll make a nice segue here. So Andrew, what feels to you like the most and maybe least Star Trek like about this? series so far?
It's interesting because you could probably answer that in the same question in the same response, because it's kind of Michael Burnham's struggle right now. And you see it with some of the other characters in regards to like what the Federation should be doing versus what they're doing now. It's a very militaristic organization, which is not something that has been portrayed in the past unless you go to the Mirror Universe, which could be a spoiler. And it's the struggle between like doing what's right versus what is necessary. And that to me is very Star Trek. It's that quest to do what is right for humanity. And it's not necessarily the decision that people will understand, but it's the one that is the right thing to do. And you're seeing an evolution of the characters, Burnham especially, just because she's the main actor. But that's what I've really enjoyed, like getting to see the development of the Federation and the ideals that we're used to in each of the series since, but seeing the struggle that characters have with how it is in this current setting and how the Klingons are so opposed, like the Federation's expansion. That to me, like, it's both the best and worst because it's something that we're not used to. And so I've enjoyed it, but at the same time, it's just different. And that's where it's just getting used to it.
Yeah. Nathan, what about you?
Yeah, I think the thing that's very, I guess, Star Trek about it is how these different characters are trying to find their place in this. They're in this weird situation where they're now at war, right? I mean, I think especially with Burnham, who is still trying to kind of navigate how to live in a human world, having not really grown up that way. I mean, that really echoes, sort of the development of Spock throughout original series and the movies to a certain extent. I like with Stamets, like he's a scientist but now he has to sort of develop this weapon of war, for all intents and purposes. He's like, well, I'm out here to explore, but Lorca's pushing him to, be like, well, yeah, but this is a struggle for survival. Even Lorca in his own way is like, I'm trying to do, the right thing under extreme circumstances. Tilly has, again, like the most optimistic view of the world. And I kind of think that those are some of the elements they've just sort of changed for the nature of the show, being a little bit darker. It's wartime, but people are trying to figure out the right thing to do. It becomes it gets a little gray, and we don't kind of get those happy endings that you would say at the end of TOS, where it's like, here's the lesson of the week, and this is how you perform. I mean, no one's really truly rising above the occasion necessarily. The thing that doesn't feel about Trek is, sort of the same thing where we're still left with these morally ambiguous answers at the end of the day, where usually Trek has always been like, this may be the hard road, but this is the correct road to take. And you can almost sort of agree with it. And if you buy into their, utopian existence, but in this, it's like, I guess you could sort of go either way with some of these characters. You can kind of understand where they're coming from, but you may not always agree, which is the thing that's not very Star Trek, which I think is very fresh for Star Trek. DS9 probably did it best before this. And I know Voyager tried to play with that a few times and just it didn't work at all. But this, I think it's a much more mature way to do it. And I can only imagine some purists are, lighting themselves on fire, running into buildings full of explosives just over the idea that we have this ambiguous answer at the end of episodes.
Yeah. Harry, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the thing that's most un-Trek-like is the consistent morally gray area that a lot of people, probably except Tilly, who's your optimistic anchor so far in the show, because even Burnham at the start, she, technically started war and captain. So, I mean, there's these gray areas that it's just constant there, and that's just the focal point to have for the show, because that's the tone they want, and that's fine, because that's different. I really don't think that you're balancing the vision that Gene Roddenberry had, that sense of gray area or darkness or war. I still think, I'm not sure if this was your point, but DS9 mastered that the best in terms of tonality. But again, this is early days for Discovery, so you can't really judge too much on this show yet. What's best about Star Trek, we talked about, it's still, they've dropped, ideas, story points about exploration, even coming from Lorca in the last episode, whether he's using that to convince Stannis to jump. He was just making Stannis to jump, but he seemed partially interested in that exploration, multiple networks of discovering. So there still seems to be an explorer great character in the show, and the others seem to have that aspect, Stannis and Burnham. So, I mean, you have that there, and you talk to Tardigrade episode. That was a great episode of Star Trek. And so it's doing a good job balancing it.
For me, the most Star Trek what's most Trek about this for me is, I don't know about you guys, but I find it comforting to know that no matter which century, ever since the creation of Starfleet, all men have pointed sideburns. So I'm just glad to see that still.
Does Lorca and Stamets and the Doctor, they all have pointed sideburns?
Yeah. Well, Stamets and Lorca do. The Doctor has kind of a beard.
Oh, right.
So he doesn't count. But yeah, from Captain Kirk to all the way to Lorca and Chakotay and beyond, everybody's got pointed sideburns. Look it up.
Is it just Starfleet regulation?
I think it's Starfleet regulation. Yeah. Even Captain Picard's bald has fucking pointed sideburns. So
Yes.
and even Riker before the beard. So there you go. Anyway, what I found very Trek about it, and this kind of goes back to the pilot, which I know we've already covered, but that's, well, it plays through with some of the, with the Klingon on the other side of this. We've never really seen the other side of the conflict outside of Star Trek VI. It's never really been explored all that much, but it's great to see that other side in there. You know, even though the Klingons are a little bloodthirsty, it's good to see that they don't have just a warmongering philosophy here. They just wanted to be fucking left alone. And the Federation kept expanding and expanding, and nobody asked if anybody wanted that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It's an interesting question, but then I don't know if they're going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to go anywhere with it either. It's hard to say because I think there's probably some twists and turns from the Klingon end of things to come. We'll see what actually becomes of that. Hopefully it's not a disappointment, but yeah, who knows, maybe those threads will be dropped. And it's hard because the Klingons, I mean, Nathan brought it up before, so maybe we can segue into that now. The Klingons are highly annoying, at least to me. I don't know how you guys feel. I appreciate that they're all speaking Klingon the whole time. I kind of wish they had Red Octobered this and just, give us some Klingon at the start, and then you can whip up the universal translator through the television. I think that technology should exist there. I think that would have been...
You might get that
just
now.
A little easier.
You might get that now.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because I think now, maybe we will, because we had that scene in the last episode there where she had the communicator. So maybe you're right. Maybe we'll do that. But if we're just in a scene where it's just Klingons, I don't know that we're going to see that. I mean, whatever, we'll see. But so far, that's been troublesome for me. And part of the reason why is... I don't want to be one of those people like, oh, I don't want to read subtitles. Like, I don't want to read. I'll read subtitles if I'm watching a movie from like Korea or something like that. But it's also hard. Like, it's really difficult for actors to do a good job emoting under all that makeup. So
now you're making it.
Yeah, you're making it worse. Exactly. Yeah, you're kind of throwing two things on top. Like, if you look at Doug Jones, I mean, I don't know how he emotes under all that junk on his face, but fuck, does he do a good job. But I can actually look at his face so I can see some of the nuance he's doing there with the Klingons. You just can't really do it. So they're very homogenous because, they're...
I disagree. I think they've done a good job. I'm not saying there's not a Klingon problem, but if you're talking about performance, I think they've done a good job emoting. I just think tonally, I'm not 100% sure maybe not tonally is not the right word. Just execution-wise, I don't think that nailed Klingon down right.
Yeah, they seem more primitive than anything. Like primitive Klingon versus more of like I'm trying to explain it to someone who's never watched Star Trek before. And I'm like, well, they're supposed to be honorable, but these Klingons are just backstabbing bastards.
Go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
I think the actors are doing a good job, or the best job that they can with the prosthetics, but I just have this feeling that they spoke in Klingon for the 8 prior episodes. So they could just have that one scene where you put down the universal translator, which was pretty cool. But I'd rather see them talking in a language that I think they can easily act and we can better understand. But I can't put my finger on it, but they just don't seem Klingon-y enough.
Yeah, I agree. There's something about it that's off.
Yeah. Nathan, we haven't forgotten about you, but I just wanted to make a point there because, Andrew, you brought it up, is talking about honor and, Klingons having that code. But if you watch the original series, they actually were kind of backstabbing, sinister douchebags.
Yeah,
but the whole honor thing.
But we got to let some of that slide, though, Jeff. I mean, it's just like with the fucking makeup and the ridges and stuff. So we're letting that go because that's the first Trek. We know who Klingons are supposed to be. They've entered houses, talked about honor. They've dropped name, honor, word several times Klingon scene. So
yeah, but I'm just wondering if they're maybe made a little bit more treacherous on purpose, not from necessarily a continuity standpoint, but because we've seen how fractured the Empire is, nobody's getting along. So maybe that becomes part of this story, is the unification of the Klingon Empire under a more honorable type of code. And this, what we're seeing now, these Klingons who are not very honorable, like that way kind of dies off, or maybe they've lost their way or something like that. So I wonder if that's purposeful at this point.
But I think that's where the show could benefit, just like what they did on TNG or DS9, is you're seeing, political strife or council meetings. I'm not saying we want to talk about taxation and trade routes, a la Phantom Menace.
Bring me a blockade any day, baby.
But I mean, they did it well on TNG DS9, all the scenes on the Klingon world, establishing where the Klingons are, who are the power players, who's the houses. They did a little bit of that in pilot. You saw those holograms or houses there. But I think their show would benefit from Klingon-centric episodes where you don't even see any of Discovery crew and see what's going on with Klingons. I think the show desperately needs to do that.
Okay, yeah. Nathan, what are your thoughts on the Klingon problem here?
The Klingon problem, I find...
The Kronos Conundrum, we'll say.
Yeah, because...
That'll be the episode title.
Oh, that'd be a great episode title. Yeah, I think DS9 did do it best. I think probably the best one was when Quark had to go to Kronos and he's spouting off a bunch of business rhetoric to the High Council. That was a great episode. But I find nothing about the Klingons compelling. I mean, I don't know. I don't care. I'm not. And yeah, Jeff, I'm like you, where I don't want to be one of those types where subtitles. I mean, I don't mind subtitles most of the time, but there's something, I don't know, there's something so irksome about the way these Klingons, just the production of them talking. There's something also so unnatural about these actors talking in Klingon. Whereas, TNG and DS9 did it so much better. I mean, I agree with you. Episodes. There are episodes in DS9 where you have Klingons talking, no subtitles, and the scene just is you don't really know what they're saying, but the scene flowed really well. It's quick couple of scenes, a battle scene, stuff like that. Oh, this is great. But there is something so unnatural about the way the Klingons in this speak. And I mean, I'm at a loss for even what the Klingon story. I was excited for this part as well when they announced we're going to see the Klingon perspective. Well, that's really cool. I cannot succinctly describe what the hell is even really going on, other than to say they're sort of showing some of the ambiguity as well on the Klingon side, but I have no character that I really care about there. Mm-hmm. So I feel it's there. To me, it's not working, and I think they need to change it or just drop it.
Mm-hmm. I think the intimation is that we'll get a conclusion one way or the other to the Klingon storyline at the end of the season, but we'll see what happens. Maybe this is a good time to drive into the Ash Tyler issue, as Harry alluded to it earlier. So, Harry, why don't we talk a little bit about Lieutenant Tyler and what up?
Well, I mean, the theories were rampant on the internet the minute he was introduced, I think after the first episode, and then we started to see the female Klingon, whatever her name is, or whoever her name is, and we're not seeing, not Takuvma, what's his name? Kor? I can't remember.
Vok.
Yeah. So since he has
because they abandoned Vok on the bridge of the Discovery, or not the Discovery, the bridge of the Shenzhou.
Yeah, and since then he's not episode, been seen, right. And she has said, well, what you're going to have to go through to find your path to glory is going to take a great amount of sacrifice. And since he was then absent, and you were seeing her over the course of the next couple of episodes, and then Tyler comes in the Klingon prison, coincidentally, so many people on the internet put two and two together that it was not a shock that it seems to be obviously the case, is that I guess we could talk about it to see if everyone's on the same page. He's Vok. Tyler's Vok, right?
Yeah.
I'm on board with that theory.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so here's the only thing I'm going to say about that. So that seems to be the case. But Harry, if that's the case, Lieutenant Ash Tyler is a real guy in the Star Trek universe, right? He's a real security officer. I met him once. Lorca did his research on him, right? Because he was questioning him, when they were doing their training thing in that sort of pseudo holodeck. And Lorca was grilling him. The guy's a commissioned Starfleet officer. He doesn't just come out of nowhere.
But the real Ash Tyler could have been captured and killed, and then they turned Vok into him.
Yeah.
Okay, so what? Yeah, so that's what I'm asking. Is what's the mechanism here? Is
no, they had a real Tyler.
Yeah.
Yep. It was Obi-Wan, and then now it's Obi-2. They cloned him or whatever. It's
Well, so is this Ash Tyler as like a sleeper agent and like Vox?
No, this is plastic surgery. This is like classic, next gen or even TNG when Kirk became the Romulan. I think his sideburns got even longer in that episode, right? I think it was the Enterprise incident where he invaded the Romulan ship, right?
Such a great episode.
That's a great episode.
Device.
Kill you. So, I think they did it a couple times in DS9, and then obviously TNG with Troy, and then the Klingon episode in TNG.
Well,
in
I'm
DS9
not just talking about plastic surgery, though. I'm talking about the whole thing. Like he has.
No, he's not. This is not Tyler as a sleeper agent. I think this is Vok, and in order to fool. Maybe because, whoever, psychiatrists or psychologists who would be, or fucking other, what's Troy's species? Betazoids or whoever. They had to really fuck up his brain and like brainwash him or retool that aspect of his neurology where he would really believe he's Tyler, and now he's unraveling.
They gave him they gave him perfect English and they gave him all of the memories.
I agree with you, but that's the leap we have to take as viewers of a TV show.
Yeah, he's just got his Klingon Katra. That's pretty much all that he's got.
Well, that's what I was. Is that in fact the case? Does he have the Klingon version of Vox Katra?
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to like the Winter Soldier in Civil War, where she's just going to say a few words, and all of a sudden Vox is like, "Oh no, I just slept with that human chick," and then like things are going to completely unravel. But I think it's just going to be a sequence of words.
So Andrew, you agree that? Are you saying that you believe this is Vok in terms of spirit and mind, but not body in Tyler?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's quite possible.
Like, I think that's kind of what I think as well. That Tyler's that is Tyler, and Tyler's in there, and somehow Vok is in there as well. But I don't know how they're going to play that out. If that is indeed the case, like obviously something's going on there.
Why'd you leave him on Genesis? I couldn't touch him.
I think that what they may actually do is that he's kind of a sleeper agent, but he won't be able to let go of being Ash Tyler. Not too dissimilar from Battlestar Galactica to a certain degree, where certain Cylons they couldn't, sometimes they couldn't let go of who they were pretending to be. That's kind of my theory, that it's not going to be. There's also the possibility that, the writers are like, okay, people are going to figure this out, so we need to have like a real twist. And then, boom, Tilly is a Klingon or something like that. Like, so I mean, like writers, I mean, it's tough to get ahead of this thing in this age of the internet, because the writers are dialed into what the fans are saying. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they even changed course. Like maybe they thought that they were being clever and like, oh yeah, he's a Klingon, but oh shit, everyone figured it out. Now we have to do something different. I mean, maybe that's also a possibility.
Yeah, I wonder if, and this is just crazy fan speculation, but fuck it, why not? He referred to himself as son of none, the Vok did, right? So he was like kind of nothing. I'm wondering if he was originally a plant, because Laurel, who's the female Klingon, and she said before, like she's, from a house of spies and deceivers, like if she or somebody like her, like they planted this guy originally, like maybe he was human and like he's just been an operative the whole time, because he had no history either. So there's a couple of weird things going on here that I think will play into this storyline as it goes along. So, but I guess we'll just have to wait until January to find out. So, speaking of unknown agendas, Lorca, Andrew, what's this guy doing?
I really want him to be good. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
But do you? I guess let's get this out of the way, and Andrew, you can address it first. Do we really think that Jason Isaacs is going to stick around beyond a season of Star Trek?
No, and that's where it's a character like Sean Bean. We're like, oh no, he's only going to be around for a few episodes.
Don't kill Sean Bean.
Yeah.
Well, I think he got killed enough times to rival Sean Bean, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
No, I think nobody can even. They'd have to do 60 minutes straight just to even get half of Sean Bean's death count.
They would, yeah.
Like, I've read some speculation in terms of like the mid-season finale. Like, you see him programming it, so you know he's done something to alter the course of the Discovery. The one fan speculation that I'm not a big fan of is that people think that he could be from the Mirror Universe originally, which I don't like that approach. I think he's just more in it for himself. But he's also
where
struggling.
Did he send them then?
Pardon me?
Like, where did he send them? Like, you said you see him override that jump, right? So
yeah.
Like, where he says right before that, we're going home. So he knew what he was doing. So like, where did he take them then?
Correct. And then they talked about like Mirror Universes earlier in the episode. So Jonathan Frakes with his big mouth kind of spoiled everything. Exactly. But I don't know if he's necessarily originally from there or if he was just playing off to everyone that we're going home. I hope that he's not from the Mirror Universe. I think it's going to make for some interesting episodes the next few, but I'm still struggling with it, like trying to figure out what his true agenda is. And that's what makes the character so enjoyable, is that you're questioning every move. Like when I first watched the episode, I was like, oh no, he's totally a good guy. And then you start analyzing it, like, no, he's kind of a douche. So I still haven't put my finger on it, but I just hope he's not from the Mirror Universe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, why do you hope that? Like, you just don't like the idea, or you just want him to be good? Because there might be a good Lorca out there. Obviously, Lorca's a real guy too, right? So there might be a...
Yeah, and like the Admiral mentioning that she doesn't recognize the man that he is now, and then like the story about how like he abandoned his starship and wanted to destroy so that no one would get captured. I think there are elements that could play out which could lead towards him being from the Mirror Universe. It just seems like a plot point to have him from there versus him struggling with the PTSD, like a soldier who's trying to live in an environment now where there's like scientific discovery. I know I'm bouncing all over the place, but at the same time, I don't want it to be a Mirror Universe character just for it to be a Mirror Universe character for the fans.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good point. Harry, what do you think is going on here?
I mean, I like Lorca so far. He's the most compelling character to me that we've seen. But I still have doubts that Jason Isaacs is going to continue. I think that's after season 1. I think they're completely going down the line where Burnham will succeed him as captain, and she'll be the Kirk, and Saru will be the Spock, and they'll have that kind of relationship. You know, not direct relationship like the original series, but that'll be the Kirk-Spock relationship moving forward. And I think even Sonequa Martin Green kind of hinted at the possibility of her being captain moving forward. So fucking actors letting shit slip like that, it's unfortunate. But I mean, you could put 2 and 2 together with whether Isaacs would be staying or not. I hope I'm wrong. That's interesting theory though, Andrew, about him being this Lorca being from the alternate universe. I think that'd be a nice little twist. I don't think that's the case, though. I think this Lorca is the Lorca from this universe. You know, is this Section 31? I guess that's a question I have for you guys. Like, he's a man of war, and I like the way Jason Isaacs is portraying himself very deliberately different than Picard and Kirk. You know, like he says, he has different mannerisms, he stands, he doesn't say engage or punch it or let's go or, you know, warp speed or anything like that. He's purposely doing his own thing, which I think is needed, and that's very good. Do you think that this is Section 31? I guess that's
I hope not.
I hope not too. Yeah. But what was with that black? I was a question for you. What was with that in the third episode after, like the first episode after the 2-hour premiere? She saw the black badges. Starfleet badges, and then they just dropped it.
Yeah, and we never saw it again.
Never see it again.
Which was weird.
So I thought that's why we had a Brian Fuller segregation at that point. They filmed and written certain things up to a point, and then they were just tight for time, and they said, we'll just fill it, keep it, and we can use it later or not. I don't know.
I was under the impression they had not started principal photography before he left.
Maybe not photography, but ideas, scripts, ideas, and they said, okay,
sure, no, definitely.
Interesting, let's film it, and then we'll just, keep it, and that's just kind of a little nugget, and then whether we come back to it or not, then future writers would make that decision.
Yeah. I don't think it's Section 31, personally, it just doesn't... It's
too obvious.
It just doesn't feel like that, and I hope not, because I never liked the Section 31 idea anyway, but whatever. They kind of dropped the Black Deltas there since that episode. I think they just threw that in there because Burnham was seeing it for the first time, and I think they were just like sort of basically like Makos from Enterprise, if you will. They're sort of special forces guards because they have all of this advanced technology. I think that was the only intimation there.
It's fine, but you don't see it again.
No, you don't see it again, but I think like it was always meant to not see it again. Like they put too much emphasis on it, so we're all reading into it when they never really. I think they didn't like we did it, and they're like, well, shit, we didn't. That's not what we meant, but we got nowhere to go with it. So yeah, it's too late. So that's kind of what I think happened there. I think it's just. I don't think it's a drop plot point. I think it just wasn't meant to be anything in the first place. But it was fucking cool though. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I just kind of was hoping for something else. Some
you never
follow
know,
up
right?
on that, but whatever. Maybe we'll get something. But going back to Lorca, I mean, I like him. He's a guy. I want to know more about him.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've done a really good job showing, some of his vulnerabilities, like with his eyes, sensitivity to light and that torture scene, and he has issues. And then the fact that maybe you guys want to talk about this. Is this a heroic man, a courageous man, or is he a coward? Because he tells Harry Mudd that Harry Mudd volunteers that information to Tyler that in the prison scene that he allowed the whole crew to die, and we find out later that he in fact blew them all up. What do you guys think about that? Do you guys not recall that?
I recall it. Yeah, no, I was just waiting for somebody else to go first.
Oh wait, no. Okay, repeat that. I missed what you said.
In the first Harry Mudd episode when Harry's in prison.
Yeah.
And
I thought you were talking about the yeah. I thought that was more just him, his nature of I will do whatever it takes, like no matter the sacrifice in order to win.
But then he saves himself instead of going down with the ship also, because he, like any other captain that we've seen, if he's condemning the crew, like a good captain would condemn his crew in a situation like that, which is fine to prevent torture or information leaking to the enemy and yada and all this stuff, but he would go down with the ship too.
Maybe he's just a real narcissist. He's like, I'm just that important.
I guess that's the interesting question I have about him, and it's hard to nail down who he is. And that's why he's compelling.
Yeah, I think kind of based on what I've seen of the character so far, I would say that in his mind, he's like, well, I'm the important factor here, right? So I'm the one who needs to survive. And I'm sure, so I think he has like a weird justification for it in his own mind, right? But he's in that particular scenario too, he's like trying to say, well, I'll do whatever it takes, to win this war. But, because I'm kind of like indispensable, I can't do that. So I think in his mind, it's not necessarily cowardice, because it's not like we've ever seen him run from a fight ever. Right. And I think in that particular scenario, that was just more of an extreme circumstance, because he's more than willing to fight. Right. He's chomping at the bit to blow up every Klingon ship that he can. Right. So was it the second to last episode? What was the episode where they go to attempt to rescue another ship that's under attack? And it's overwhelming forces, but, he puts the Discovery between that other ship and Klingon fire. So I don't really find him to be a coward necessarily. I don't know. It is weird. Like, I mean, it's a good question to bring up, actually. I'm not sure I perceived it that way, but the moral ambiguity of this character, I mean, he's just dripping in ambiguity all the time.
I do love his collection, though.
Oh, wow. I mean, and that's a whole other section right there. Talk about this guy. Like, why does he have like this arsenal? He's got the Gorn skeleton. There's like, he's got tribbles around, things like that. There's so much background to this character that I kind of hope that he sticks around for maybe a couple of seasons. I mean, he's a big enough actor that I don't think he's going to tie himself down for, well, it's hard to say. Like, English actors are maybe a little bit different in this way, where they're like, yeah, I'm totally fine like doing a show as long as we're keeping the run down to a short number of episodes. Yeah, I'll hang out and do this for a while. So hopefully he doesn't. I'm kind of hoping he sticks around for a bit.
Yeah, his interviews give the impression that he's really enjoying this experience being in Star Trek. And what I've appreciated is like just reading about him, despite his current feud with William Shatner.
That was awesome, by the way.
He's been blocked and he feels upset. But no, it's.
I think they've made up. I think Shatner just unblocked him.
Hot off the presses. That's a feel good moment. We need those in the United States. But I find like what I really appreciated is Jason Isaacs when he was talking about it, like where he was initially given the script and he was given, I think, like the first 3 episodes, he was asking questions like, well, we can't tell you about that. He's like, I'm not going to portray this character unless you tell me everything about him. And so I've appreciated that because he's acting specifically based upon the information he has. And I think we're going to find out stuff where like he's being all heroic and macho now to make up for that moment of cowardice where he fled the ship with all of his crew still on board. And so he's just putting on this show to try and make amends for it. But that's where it's like I keep questioning it. And that's what makes him my favorite character is I just can't figure him out. And so it's tuning in to figure out more about the character that unfortunately I think he won't last past the season. But there's so much more than what we know that I'm excited to find out about him.
Yeah, there's so many facets to this guy, and he is so interesting. I really hope I was actually kind of digging the idea that he might be from the Mirror Universe, but just the more we talk about it, I hope that he's not, because that almost minimizes.
I think it cheats.
Yeah, it's just less. Yeah, it's more interesting to think that this is a guy has post-traumatic stress, and, as kind of what Nathan said there, like he would have gone down with the ship, but he feels that he himself is an important figure, so that he has to survive, but that he's bearing that burden of survival that he would have. I think that he thinks that he would have rather gone down with his ship, but he had to bear the burden of survival in order to continue the war effort. Like things like that make him so fascinating. Unfortunately, it feels like this type of character is not long for the Star Trek world, simply because it's going to be hard to reconcile a lot of these items over the course of several seasons.
That's too bad.
However,
that would be amazing if they would continue this, and then there's an arc for him as well.
Yeah, and I think that it's entirely possible that there will be. I hope that there will be. I don't think he's so big that he would. And yeah, and as Nathan said, like, don't forget, they only do 13 episodes, and he's not the main character, so his shooting schedule would be. He would have plenty of opportunity to be in other things, other pictures or theater, if that's his bag. I think it would be great to have him continue on the show here. I don't really want them to move too much on the dynamic of the show here. I don't see Burnham.
Think that they're just going to go down the route of saying Burnham's going to inherit the captaincy.
I don't because. Don't see the twist where her life sentence for treason gets commuted to captaincy of the most advanced ship in the Federation.
This is Starfleet. Chris Pine's Captain Kirk, 4 days out of Starfleet.
That was J. Abrams' Starfleet. This is clearly much more nuanced than that. I don't see. She's not going to the captain's chair from an uncommissioned officer specialist. Burnham, no, there's no reason why she would leap over Saru, or they would have another captain, or any of that stuff. I just don't see it. That would have to be a pretty spectacularly heroic act.
Blow up a Death Star.
Series of acts. She would have to blow up the entire Mirror Universe while it's on the brink of invasion in order for this to.
That would be a fucking awesome storyline, by the way.
That would be pretty neat, actually. Yeah. So no, you know what? I don't see that, Harry, and the reason why I don't is because then you just kind of put things into a more conventional Star Trek dynamic, and I do think they want to, maybe if not avoid it outright, then to play around with it and throw it on its ear a bit more. I just don't see them doing that sort of conventional scene. Before I saw the show, that's what I thought was going to happen. Before I knew anything about the show, or just sort of knew the characters and stuff, that's what I thought was going to happen as well. But as soon as I watched the pilot, I was like, oh, that's out the window. Like, she's going to prison, and she is guilty of what she did. So I don't see it. But anyway, I hope Lorca sticks around. I think he's an excellent character. I think he's fantastic. And Jason Isaacs he's a boss. So that's awesome.
I guess then, side question, seeing Lorca this way, does it make you miss the traditional, optimistic, leader, whether it's a Captain Kirk or a Captain Picard, guy who's spearheading your show? Is there any sense of that you miss?
I'll answer that first. I don't miss it for two reasons. One, I could watch an episode of TNG every single day if I need to. And two, I think it's neat to see some of these other characters who are optimistic, like Tilly. Stamets is optimistic, even though he's kind of a jerk. I think that Burnham is also optimistic, but she has a very skewed view of it, and we can talk a little bit about that as well when we get into her. It's cool to see these characters trying to be maybe what we would consider a little more traditional Star Trek, and they have to operate under the thumb of this person who appears to not be that way. So that's just a lot more interesting. It's like they're trying to break out of these things that hold humanity back, and you can see them actively doing it, and even you can see it inside the characters themselves. So he's almost the perfect representation of that. Like, if he's acting honestly in certain scenes where you see some of the wonder, where he's like, look at all these possibilities we're not just talking about exploring the galaxy, we're talking about exploring alternate universes, and there are pieces that in him where you can see this true or traditional Starfleet captain coming out, but he has to do what is necessary first. I mean, I think it's great. It's not traditional.
Go to the Deveron system. Let's just face it.
You got to go to the Deveron system. Yeah. Yeah, so that's my take.
No, I agree. It's fresh, right? So, we don't want to see the same thing, but I just want to see the arc. I would like to see an arc where they get there, where we would see someone who's matured and has the right mentality of how Starfleet should be by the end of this episode. I'm not sure, but that's what the show's going to be about. That's just kind of a wish list I have.
Why don't we bring it in? We haven't talked much about Michael Burnham, and she is our protagonist, I suppose. It's not quite the traditional ensemble cast here with, as we know, the captain at the head of the cast here, but Michael Burnham. I kind of wanted to get everybody's take here, not just on Soneqa's performance, but character itself, her backstory and her history and her actions. Andrew, why don't you tell us what you think about her?
I definitely have enjoyed the development of the character. I think there are certain elements that I would prefer that they had left out. I'm still struggling with the fact that she had to have Sarek as a surrogate father. I think that was thrown in for fan service unnecessarily just to make a connection. I've enjoyed the character, but it feels a little too, I think, familiar, or we've seen this kind of arc portrayed in Star Trek before, like where Spock went through it.
So how so, though? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, Spock throughout, it's more portrayed in the movies as his struggle of dealing with being human and Vulcan. And for her, she's struggling with being raised as a Vulcan while being a full-blooded human, and she's making the adjustment. So initially, like, she was very Vulcan in the way that she acts. And so now it's like she's growing up as a teenager, like, oh my God, I've got hormones. Ooh, this guy's attractive. Like, oh, I'm finally going to kiss a boy. I've enjoyed the performance. I think you can see why they waited for her to be finished with The Walking Dead to be added to the show, because I think she's brought a great acting element to it beyond, I think, the fantastic acting that the rest of the characters have had. But with her, it's not as interesting as the other character development that I've seen on the show. I want to know more about Saru. I want to know more about Tilly and Tyler, Stamets and the Doctor. But for her, I just haven't had that same excitement. So
is she your least favorite character, Andrew? Just out of curiosity, out of the main characters?
I think she's the least interesting. It's not that I don't like her. I just find that there's so much more with the other characters that I want to know more about versus this arc, which seems to be very predictable. But okay. I like the change of portrayal in the sense that it's not the captain who's the main focus of the series. It's her, but it just seems a little too cliche and typical redemption arc versus the ambiguity that you see with the rest of the cast.
Okay, Harry, what do you think?
I'm in a complete agreement with Andrew. What? I know. But no, I agree. I think she's done a great job, and obviously you're seeing more of the story following her, especially earlier in the first few episodes. I enjoy her relationship with Saru, and I think if they expand on that more, the show will be stronger for it. I think those two have a great chemistry, budding chemistry. I think you guys like Tilly a little bit more than me, but she's kind of really a side character, so I'm not really counting her as part of the main crew from my perspective. But I think outside of Tilly, I think she's the least compelling character for me so far. I like her better than Stamets as a character or someone I could relate to, and I cheer for her as a protagonist because she seems to make the most sense. But I just don't find that the execution of her character has been that strong or as good as the other characters. Like this whole Vulcan, side storyline of her being that, I think that was just terrible. I'm not a fan of any of this stuff with the Vulcan, her heritage, her upbringing, the relationship to Sarek. I think that's all just garbage shit, as I'd like to say it. Needs to be put away, and it seems to be not too much of a focus outside of that for the pilot in that one episode. She's just, I don't see a lot of logic coming out of her.
Okay, Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, I was really excited about this character. I really liked her in the pilot. And I thought the character in the pilot was very compelling with her particular backstory. And I don't think that they've capitalized on it. It's not the actress's fault. I think she's actually been doing a really great job with what she's been given. But I'm really at a loss to understand what the drive is for her, because it's it's a bit of that Spock character where she's trying to, but Spock was trying to find his place in the world and trying to be, I'm half human, but I've chosen this Vulcan way of life. She has not really chosen a Vulcan way of life. She just grew up on Vulcan And then we kind of get through a series of flashbacks and stuff like that, she was never attempting to be Vulcan. And it's not as though she rejects her humanity. So I really don't know what they're trying to say with this character. It's a little bit confusing. I do like that she has a sense of ethics, right? I mean, like there are things, the episodes with the tardigrade and what she believes is the ethical decision with the tardigrade. The second Harry Mudd episode, she brings up, we need to save these space whales, and then in the last 2 episodes, we need to save these. I can't remember what the name of the aliens were on the crystal planet there. But so there are interesting aspects to this character, but it's completely baffling to me as to why I should care about. She was raised on Vulcan and is like, she's completely human, and she doesn't really deny that. So I don't know exactly what the discovery kind of is to it, because there's this weird struggle, but it's not like, I have to maintain my Vulcan qualities. So the signals are kind of mixed. I don't think the writing is really that strong, but she has been doing a really good job of it. And I think that the redemption story has been a little bit all over the place with her at times. Like, she seems very jaded about, I'm a mutineer and
I only have a certain amount of time left here, I'm here to help, and I'm going to be gone soon, and it's kind of a little all over the place.
Yeah, I just think that the writing for the character has not really lived up to the promise of the pilot. And I feel like the character has kind of regressed a little bit since the pilot. And I don't know if that was ever because of the death of Georgiou. We never talked about the fact that they ate Captain Georgiou.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Yeah, what do you guys think of that? Okay, let's save that for
I can't believe I just got there from talking about Burnham's journey. But just to cap it, we got to talk about this. Cap it with Burnham, is that I feel they haven't lived up to the promise of the character of the pilot. And whatever happened afterwards, I just don't think. Maybe we'll get it in the second part of the season, but they're kind of dropping the ball a little bit for me.
Okay, well, good opinions, everybody. Good job there. I hate to inform you all of how incorrect you are. It's going to be my job today here. Yeah, no, there is nothing cliche about this. This is a redemption story, but not of her seeking it. She is simply, as she said, is a Starfleet first officer, and even though she doesn't hold that rank, that is who she is, so that is how she behaves. She is arrogant and thinks she is better than everybody, which comes as a result of her Vulcan upbringing, which is why it's important that we have that backstory, as we all know how arrogant Vulcans are, even though they don't think that they are, and they believe that they're better than all other races because of their logic. And to them, that's not arrogance, that's just logic, and she bears that as well. She always knows better. She's always right. Lorca even says as much to her in episode 3, where he says, I know how much you love being right, and the only thing you hate more is being wrong. So she assumes she knows better. And you can see it in her actions. I mean, the pilot speaks for itself, where she is the first Starfleet officer to ever mutiny against her captain and starts a war. So there's consequences there. She also, in the first episode after that, episode 3, where she figures she steals Tilly's saliva to get into the secure area on the ship, like she's entitled to do so. And she just behaves that she knows better. So that is her driving point. She doesn't know it. She doesn't think it consciously, but that is all right there in front of us. And I think that's fucking terrific, because we've never seen a character, not at least a main character, who acts with such arrogance and superiority to everybody without telling us all the time how much better she is. Like that, if this was a character in Star Trek Enterprise, she'd, like DePaul would just be telling us how much better she is than everybody. Much more subtle here. So that is the last word on that.
No, but hold on.
I completely disagree.
The thing though is that she has like this constant conflict within herself, but I don't understand where that's coming from exactly.
Well, what conflict are you guys referring to?
Where she's trying to reconcile this idea of being human who's been raised Vulcan. I get the arrogance, and that does come from the Vulcan upbringing, but it's as though she is struggling to come to terms with who she actually is, but it's not as though she ever thought she was Vulcan.
Where do we see that? that?
You've seen it quite a bit.
Yeah, okay, well, no, name one.
The developing relationship with Tyler. Like, she's struggling to deal with these emotions which Vulcans are taught to suppress, but...
Well, she's never been in, well, she's simply never been in love before.
The relationship with Tilly. Like, I mean, she's so standoffish in such a weird way.
Well, what's the struggle? Like, that's just like, she just like, I'm better than everybody, and there's this person who's trying to be friends with me. Like, obviously that's going to generate...
See, Jeff, I think you're taking a couple of things, a couple of scenes at face value. I mean,
I think that you're taking it at face value.
No, I think you're taking it at face value.
No,
I think they've dropped... No, you are.
Best insults ever.
So you're saying that you're reading into it more than me, and I'm taking it at face value?
Yes.
Demonstrate. Well, no, but I mean, just give me an example.
But you haven't given me your examples.
I gave you all of the examples. I told you about how she broke into the place, like she's all entitled. I told you how she.
No, I'm just saying that
she's like, I know better. I told you all of this stuff.
Yeah, but you're saying that she's just feels entitled, so she broke into the place because she's in a strange place. And some strange shit's going. You saw that scene where she was sleeping and then the fucking alarms go off and they say black alert. And then Tilly was saying, oh, you don't want to talk about it. So she's, kind of saying, what the fuck have I gotten myself into? Where the fuck am I? So she uses her smarts.
She should have just kept her head down. Like, I'm going to be out of here soon anyway, which she always said.
She was heading. Okay, who gives a fuck? She's already headed for a life sentence. I might as well find where the fuck I am. So she's using her smarts, which is fine. Those are good scenes. But I mean, I really don't think that's really any different than any other Starfleet officer that we've seen. I've seen every other Starfleet officer in that kind of weird predicament where they're going to break out of wherever they are, or they're going to do their investigative and due diligence.
But it wasn't. But she's a Starfleet officer. It wasn't her right to go poking around where she didn't belong.
Oh, because she did just get kidnapped from prison transport. So
she got rescued from a prison transport that was about to be destroyed.
Well, it doesn't matter, but now there's some weird shit going on.
Well, no, obviously there's some weird shit going on. What I'm saying is that she isn't thinking, well, I'm so much better than Marty, I'm going to go take a look. She just, in her core, in her soul.
Dude, that is every protagonist that you've seen before. I'm sorry. I've seen that in every single Star Trek episode.
It doesn't matter if you've seen it before. For her, it's different. She is placing herself above everybody.
I see part of what you're saying. I just think that you're taking something on a very broad stroke and you're making it bigger than it is.
See, I think that you're making less of her than what it is.
Okay. Well,
I'm actually giving her credit for doing this.
I agree to disagree. I'll take the high road. You could take the low ground. I don't know. Where was Anakin? That's you.
I'll take the high ground and you can get your legs chopped off. And
I called it first. I got dibs. You got the low ground. I said Anakin's you. There you go.
Guys, they ate Captain Logan.
And he totally was using her.
Let's get there.
Are we going to let this stand? Like, are we not going to talk about how weird this is?
I could not believe.
That was awesome. And they said it
I could not believe
comment.
That Harry
It was so off the cuff. I couldn't believe it.
I'm just wondering why it took nearly 50 years for this to happen. I've been waiting for it every single Star Trek series. Like, why aren't they just going to eat each other? Like, this is just, go down the direction of Hannibal. Great show.
I guess
great show.
Okay, let's just quickly go around the table. Like or dislike? Why don't we start there?
Dislike with a passion.
You dislike that they ate her. Okay. That's what we're talking about.
I liked it. I liked it. I thought it was fresh. And I think that they specifically mentioned...
As fresh as Georgiou was?
Well, we don't know how fresh she really is. So, anyways.
Oh, there's so many comments.
But anyways.
I kind of liked it in a way because it was so weird and disturbing.
Yeah, it was weird and disturbing, and they're trying to do the Klingons different, and they eat the heart of their enemies or whatever, but weren't they also starving? They were short on food. I'm not sure that was the point, but I think they brought that up a couple of times.
I'm sure she wasn't the last item of food they ate either. Like, they were starving, but...
She was dessert.
I think they did because there was I can't even remember now, but there was that other Klingon who came to the tomb ship or whatever they call it and said, yeah, I have food. I can give food to your crew, because I think the implication was that they didn't have any food.
Yeah.
Or their stocks were running low or something like that.
Yeah, that was the
I don't think that was the intent of them dropping this little nugget, though.
No, I think it was definitely like, we gain the power of our enemies by eating them. Yeah. Because Michelle Yeoh is not a big person. That's not going to go, you're not going to feel like shit.
Yeah, touche. No, but I agree with you.
She's like a plate of chicken wings. Does that well.
No, but I agree with you. You got the right sentiment there, Nathan, is that they're eating the soul of their enemy, whether they can't escape or they've trapped it, or that's their conquering reward or victorious reward or whatever it may be. It seems Klingon-ish, even though we haven't seen that more barbaric or horrific action of the Klingons in the past. I mean, I'm surprised this wasn't part of Worf's bachelor party where he was going to kill his own groomsmen and eat them.
Or you just see him like
Followed by
licking his
eating
jaw.
Wesley Crusher's heart.
Shut up, Wesley.
So it didn't feel that much of a stretch that a Klingon would do that. And this is also a cult. Like, this is what I mentioned in the previous episode, is that these particular Klingons, they feel like a righteous cult, like something you would see like an ISIS or a Al-Qaeda or a terrorist group. It feels like they're kind of labeling these guys in that light. And I'm not sure if you guys agree or not. This just feels like
I don't know. I think you're reading
of
too
that.
much into it, man, actually, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm just kidding.
That's all right. That's okay.
There's a weird, like, extremist element to the Klingons that we've seen so far.
But it could just be them. This is like Takuvma. Like, he's kind of like this outcast, which is, he's not like the common guy who's preaching sermons and stuff like that. He's kind of like the guy who's kind of brainwashing people to follow him in a cult.
The ship itself is a sarcophagus ship. Like, it's got the previous dead Klingons attached to it. Like, that's got cult written all over it. Like, I'm not going to decorate my house with like former coffins or like whatever. I like Harry's approach to this, where it seems like a off cult of the Klingon Empire. Maybe they'll get a little bit more honor in the next few years before they meet up with Kirk.
Maybe.
I think I agree with that. Yeah, they definitely feels very extremist cult-like. That's a really neat aspect. I just wanted to weigh in on the eating of the captain there. I didn't get to weigh in on that. That was horrifying and awesome. I can't believe they did it. And I think Nathan alluded to it earlier. They just kind of mentioned it. It was just that it was an off-the-cuff remark. They talked about it for a bit. I liked how the guy said he was using her it's not a comm badge, but her Delta badge as a toothpick.
That was awesome. I like that.
Yeah,
it was terrific.
I think it was one of those where, we never saw Michelle Yeoh's body, and then the next episode's like, yeah, we ate her. Yep, no.
Well, it was a few episodes later, I think, so I was always wondering if we were going to see her.
It should have been a femur. A femur. I'm not the toothpick, right? This belonged to your captain. Now go fetch.
She's wearing like her spine like on his belt like a predator.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, on the topic of her, I'm not sure if I'm actually supposed to do this, but like one of the theories is that we'll see her again, but in the mirror universe, which I think would be pretty cool to see.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
Where like Saru and Burnham now have to go up against their mentor, but an evil version of her that probably has like the same type of tactics and style that she did before.
You have like the mirror universe midriff outfit
that would be awesome.
I want Saru to be like, this courageous, like, Rambo-esque character in the mirror universe, and he just goes on against his scaredy cat self. I think that'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, if he was much more, maybe courageous wouldn't be right for the mirror universe, but more Rambo-esque, I suppose, just more of a badass. That'd be kind of neat. I'm interested to see what they do with the mirror universe episode or episodes. We don't know what we're going to see over there, and I'm under the impression it is the next episode, but we'll find out, because that's the episode that Frakes directed, I thought.
Yeah, that's the next one? I mean, based on the ending of the last one, seems right.
Yeah, I just remember him saying like he directed like episode number 8, and I know the next one's episode 10, but if you subtract the first 2, as I commonly do, anyway, it doesn't matter. But okay, well, we've covered Burnham, we've kind of covered most of the episodes. I think we're kind of coming to a natural conclusion here, gentlemen. So
I do have one couple questions for you, and you can answer them at the same time. So we're modernizing Trek. I just want to get your inputs when you guys heard the F word and we got Klingon nudity here.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So Nathan, go first, please.
I was floored when they dropped an F-bomb. Absolutely floored. I rewind. It's like, what? No, wait a second. Like, I must have misheard that or something. Am I drinking too much? What is happening here? And then the Klingon nudity, again, was another, whoa, this is weird. I found the F-bomb more strange because they kind of lingered, because it was 2 of them that said it.
Yeah, they said it.
I can't remember who said it first, and then Tilly said
Tilly
it
and then Stamets.
Yeah. Tilly and then Stamets, yeah.
Oh, was it that? Is that the way it went? Okay.
Yeah, because Tilly was like, it's so fucking cool or something, and then she's like, whoops. Stamets was like, no, yeah, it's fucking cool.
Yeah, really strange. And I thought the nudity was, I don't know, out of place. Didn't need to see that. I mean, I kind of get it like in the context of the scene, but it's like, well, I don't know. I know they're trying to push the boundaries with this show, but it's like, okay, like, maybe ease us into it just a little bit.
I dug it. I dug both, and I'll tell you why. Because it feels like it's part of the feel overall of the show where this feels like a really premium format television show, not just modern TV, but like really premium. And maybe an F-bomb and some alien nudity aren't what you would typically associate as sort of microcosms of that. But, you had, if you watch, TNG, Voyager, DS9, and then even Enterprise to a certain extent, they all have sort of a similar aesthetic to them. And it's kind of cold, and I don't know what the word is for it. It's a little sterile, I suppose. Less so on DS9, just because the set design was a bit more organic. But it still has that Star Trek sterility to it. And when you bring in some of these other items, it starts to make it feel a little bit more real world to me, and that kind of falls into the premium format. So I was shocked too. I almost rewound the F-bomb as well as Nathan there. I was taken aback, but fuck it, man. People drop F-bombs, baby. It happens. I don't care if it's the 22nd century or the 2nd century. It's not going away.
No, I thought the F-bomb, like, I love that scene because it's just, like, these characters seem much more human to the humans that we know today than, like, what we've seen in the past. And, like, having that moment, especially when they're talking about the science that they are discussing, it seemed like natural slip from Tilly. And Stamets confirming, like, yeah, this is fucking cool science. Like, I thought that was a really neat scene. The nudity, I think, was just done to try and shock factor, just because Wesley and I had a conversation about this where it's like you don't normally see, like, it's a rape scene, and you typically see it's like a female character being raped, but here it's a male character being raped, and I think they're trying to really hammer home, like, this is a shocking thing that we're not used to seeing. And so throwing in some Klingon boob maybe was supposed to enhance the shockness factor, but that one I didn't find as impactful and I think as well placed as the F-bombs.
For me, neither are a big deal, in this day and age of, Jeff, as you want to label it, premium format TV. After watching several seasons of Game of Thrones, nothing really shocks at this point. I just don't think it was necessary, either of them. And I think Star Trek being the staple of, I know we want to get more real relationships or more grounded realism and people can relate to people. I mean, do I really need people to swear to relate to them? I really don't think so. And I think that the Star Trek would take the moral high ground of not having the requirement of having either of these factors. And I think that's one of the better aspects of Star Trek from a hopeful, optimistic nature of where society would go. Not saying that society would not swear or have sex. That's all a natural part of life, but just to better yourselves. And I think that, and as I agree that with Andrew, I think that the Klingon boob is just meant for shock. It was nothing more. It would be different if this was, say, Sonika, Martin Green, and Tyler, and they had a sex scene, and you caught a glimpse of a butt or a boob or whatever. I think that's a different approach. Here, it's just Klingon, a quick scene of Klingon boob, and I agree with Andrew. I think that's for shock value more than anything else. So I didn't like that necessarily, but it wasn't something that I'm saying, fuck this shit, like some other purists may say. But I just think Star Trek is above all this nonsense. It doesn't need to be there. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be there. I mean, it's there, it's fine. I'm just saying it doesn't need to.
The only thing I'll say again on that, I think the F-bomb, they could have taken that out and it wouldn't have hurt the episode at all. It was a laugh. So what you guys were saying about the shock value of the Klingon nudity, I think that was done intentionally because it was disturbing and shocking. And like the shock value was there, but we're seeing that scene through Tyler's eyes, and he's freaked the fuck out when it happens. So I think they put it in there to freak us the fuck out, to kind of put us in there with Tyler.
I was
think
already
that was
freaked out seeing the fucking back, man.
Yeah, I was too, actually. Yeah, I didn't even notice the boob. The rest of it was horrifying enough.
That was enough. And that's what I mean. Like, you could still see a side shot with her arm covering the side boob. And you get all the rest of that stuff, and you still get the gyrations of the sex and the movements or whatever in the morning and groaning and the fucking screaming to the skies. I don't know who fucking died. I think someone's supposed to die for them to...
That's right. That's the Klingon death. That's the death call. Yeah, so, warning them to Stovacor, like, get ready.
Maybe they do that when they climax. Beware Stovacor.
No, she killed his dick. That's what happened.
So, yeah, But I mean, I understand what you're saying, Jeff. I'm just saying that you could do that without showing the boob.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they could have, in that context, they could have, but I don't think it was gratuitous. I think that was the purpose of it was there, but they could have done without it. It's fine. But yeah, I think it's, at the end of the day, I think it's a non-issue.
No, it's not an issue. I just hope that this is not a trend because, their CBS is going to say, well, I got to fucking compete with HBO. And that's what they're going to do. Yeah. This is where I'm coming from. This is a business standpoint. This is not for Star Trek's sake. This is not a creative standpoint. It's a business standpoint.
Yeah. And I'm okay to drop the occasional thing, but yeah, you're right. We don't want it to become Game of Thrones in space or anything like that. So,
well, I wouldn't mind Game of Thrones in space if it's called Game of Thrones in space. Let's do it.
This is space dragons and shit. Oh, that would wicked.
As long as Shatner's in it, then I'm game.
He could play the Night King in space.
He is the Night King
because he's already a zombie. He looks good for a zombie, but let's face it,
he is the king.
He is the king. All right. Let's just start to wrap it up there, guys. We won't just jump off like that, but let's go around. Just a couple final thoughts or any other questions you want to pose to the group before we wrap it up. Harry, did you have anything else you wanted to just jump in on there?
No, I think we covered it all. Favorite characters. I think we said favorite episode. I guess the question I would have is, I guess we'll answer it in our final comments, but so I'll ignore that one. But how about least favorite episode or moments that you've seen that made you question, is this going to really work or not? Did any of you have any of those moments or any episodes you're going, oh shit, this does not look good? Not that we would judge it based on only one instant or episode.
Right, yeah. So yeah, we'll answer those questions along with final thoughts, perhaps, because I think those are definitely important pieces to cover. So Andrew, why don't you jump in there?
There hasn't really been an episode that I'm like, oh, this isn't going the direction that I'd like to see. I think for me, it's funny because it's the first 10 minutes of the pilot where there's so much exposition and them doing just how they were discovered by the Shenzhou, that discussion in itself. I don't think the first 10, 15 minutes of the pilot were well directed and it wasn't good writing. But besides that, I haven't been disappointed with this season at all. There hasn't been an episode that we've walked away going, that wasn't good. It was like every episode has been enjoyable, which has been part of why I think this season's been so great.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts or questions you want to pose to the group?
No, I think we certainly covered everything definitely want to talk about today.
All right, Nathan, your turn.
I think the episode with the logic extremists and the Sarek assassination attempt, that was my least favorite episode. I mean, we got some good backstory to Burnham, but I don't know, there was something I didn't really care. I don't care for the actor who is playing Sarek. I kind of also feel that. I mean, there was sort of a neat, and I read about later, there was a neat sort of shout out to the Star Trek animated series in one of the episodes with Burnham saying how Amanda would read them.
Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, which was referenced in the animated series. That was sort of a weak episode, I felt like. I mean, we get some good backstory, but I don't know. There was something bothersome about like replaying this same scene over and over again. You could sort of see like where it was going. I think you could see it coming from a mile away. Overall, though, final thoughts on the series up to this point. There are things about it that are not very Star Trek, which, maybe bug me a little bit, but overall I find the show very compelling. I find all the actors or the characters compelling, quibbles aside. And, I'm excited to see what they do with the next half of the season. I have no idea what the hell is going on or even what the direction of the show is, but you have to sort of forgive shows in their first season. This is not an uncommon thing, Star Trek especially. So I'm excited to see what comes forward, and I'm really willing to give it a chance. I mean, I watched all of Enterprise, so I'm a high threshold for what Star Trek can do before I'm going to all right, I'm done with you guys.
Choose your pain.
Yeah, choose your pain, Voyager or Enterprise.
Oh boy, Voyager.
Yeah, Voyager,
yeah. Because there's actually some fun there to have. There's something so depressing about Enterprise.
Yeah, it was so bland.
Oh yeah.
Well, it didn't hit its stride. It didn't really figure out what it was until the last season, where they really had some fun.
Oh, yeah. Also, Scott Bakula, if you watch him walk on the show, it's like, man, I haven't taken a shit in 2 days. I got to get out of here. I got to finish this scene.
It's almost like the Riker lurch in a way, only he didn't quite pull it off.
Exactly. But he was doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
It's not because he had anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
That's in the mirror universe. We don't do that here. Enterprise has been banished. So as far as, Harry, to your questions there, low points, or least favorite episode, I keep looking back at Lethe. I actually kind of liked a lot about it. So I
This is the
guess that was the
Sarek
low
episode?
point. Yeah, the Sarek episode. Probably the low point, but there was stuff in there that I enjoyed. So it was okay. But yeah, I find it's a very compelling show, and I'm digging it so far. I know it's not conventionally Star Trek, but anybody who says this isn't Star Trek hasn't watched a single episode of Deep Space Nine. I mean, this has that DNA all through it and around it. It's off to such a great start. I mean, shit, for the first 9 episodes of every other Star Trek, aside from the original series, that's a bit different, but the first 9 episodes of DS9, TNG, Voyager, Enterprise, holy shit. Like, those shows were lucky to not have been canceled right off the fucking bat. They were not good, and this has kind of hit the ground running. So I think it's pretty compelling so far as final thoughts. I love how it looks. I think the characters are excellent across the board. Yeah, I'm digging it, baby. It's great. So, Harry, did you put in your final thoughts?
No,
already?
I didn't know we were doing final thoughts, but I can do that.
We're doing it.
Sounds good. No, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing so far. I don't think that I'm hooked. Hooked means that I'm still interested to watch, but maybe it's just a point in my life where I'm just a little different in terms of time and free time mentality as well. I wouldn't say that I'm yet a massive fan, but I'm intrigued and interested to see what's coming next. My fandom has not hit. They have not grabbed me by the bootstraps and said it's as much must-watch TV as of yet. But they're on the right track, and they're doing a better job, as you guys mentioned, than the previous shows in terms of first season quality. I'm intrigued with the characters. They're compelling. Michael Burnham's still a little bit of a question mark for me so far. As we talked about, Jeff, I'll disagree with you. She's good, but still a question mark. Yeah, Lethe, or that Sarek episode, is the shittiest one yet. I agree with Nathan. That actor's terrible. It was just all fan service, and to incorporate him. And yeah, I think they've dropped the thread of her logic and her struggle so far. We'll see if that continues or not, but I hope it doesn't, because I really don't think they need to explore that any further. It's just, I didn't enjoy seeing what I saw. Her fight scene with the mental Katra Sarek as well was laughably bad as well. That was fucking terrible. Oh, that guy needs to get worked hard. What the fuck was that? Anyways, but I'm enjoying what I'm seeing overall. The Klingon stuff, I think, needs to improve a little bit. I need more exploration there. But then they blowed the fuck up the Ship of the Dead. So, looks like we'll just get Spy Master Tyler, and whether he's Vok or Katra Vok or whatever, we'll find out. But interested to see where it's going next, and it's a better start than other season 1 episodes, but I'm not 100% sold. I'm maybe 75% sold, but not 100% sold yet. But it's a good start. But considering comparison to other season 1s, you probably say this is a rare antiquity for Star Trek. That it's
for Star Trek.
For Star Trek so far.
I think just simply that Star Trek's back. Like, that, to me, like, it's become a Sunday ritual for me, like, rushing to watch it as soon as it gets posted. Like, there was one time we were up at like 4:00 in the morning, and like, what are we going to do? Like, let's watch like Star Trek since we didn't watch it last night. For me, it's just that feeling of getting the Star Trek back that we've missed for such a long time. And I remember having this discussion with Harry, like, when the Star Trek 09 came out, where it was just so different. And I remember having this, and I said it to Wesley, like, listen, if we have to go through like JJ movies in order to get a series back, I will go through JJ movies just so we can get Star Trek back on TV. And we got through it. And thankfully the third movie wasn't that terrible, but it's just the feeling of Star Trek being back. And yeah, it's got some hiccups. It's not perfect. There are some things that we can quibble, but for me, it's just having a show like this back on TV and enjoying it as much as I have. Like, the first seasons we've talked about it are just awful for the other series minus the original series. Like, God, when I saw like Deep Space Nine blow up, I think it was in season 2, it was like a preview. I remember running to school saying, like, oh my gosh, finally they're going to blow up Deep Space Nine, and it ended up being my favorite series by far of all of the Star Treks. But simply put, it's back, and I'm loving it. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be, because it has the spirit of Star Trek.
I guess as Harry alluded to there, would you say it's, as far as Star Trek goes, a rare antiquity for you, Andrew?
I wouldn't say quite yet. I want to reserve judgment till the end of season 1. I'm just a little nervous that they may make too much fan service, which I don't think is needed. if you compare it against other season ones, absolutely. It still has a long way to go to get to that rare antiquity when you compare it to like Deep Space Nine and certain seasons of The Next Generation. It's getting there, but I will wait until the end of the season. I just don't want them to mess up, I think, what they've set up nicely for the first 9 episodes.
Yeah. Nathan, rare antiquity?
I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit on the fence. I kind of agree with Harry in that it's a rare antiquity for Star Trek first seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where I fall.
I'm going to agree with that as well. We only have 9 episodes to judge it on. So against 9 episodes of Star Trek, yeah, rare antiquity. Obviously, the whole series will have to stand against that, hopefully many years down the road. So, all right. Well, that's our mid-season recap of Star Trek Discovery. Thanks to everybody for joining. We're right around the 2-hour mark, which I think is a record for 4 of us on the show, which is a good job, guys.
Yeah,
Kept it
very
tight.
good.
So, Harry, I have been hotly anticipating the end of tonight's episode, and I hope you didn't build it up too much, but you've been teasing
Well,
for 3
thought
weeks, I
maybe
think.
I let this slip a while ago, but maybe you forgot.
What up?
Okay, so anyways, 2 weeks' time, we are seeing Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Return of the Man Luke Skywalker. For Episode 7, we did go through a little trial by fire in which we reviewed the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy prior to The Force Awakens. So I thought we would do something similar, yet different, where we are going to review next week the Ewok TV movies. Caravan of Courage, an Ewok adventure, and Ewoks, the Battle for Endor. I may be the only one on this show talking about it.
No holiday
Solo
special?
episode.
No holiday special. No, I figured I would be kind this Christmas. That's my Christmas gift to you all. So we will not do that. I tried watching that last year. I got 5 minutes in and I was done.
You can't actually you have to watch it just in snippets.
Yeah, I
It's
think
so
snippets,
unwatchable.
Yeah. Well, I just think, it's just funny. That thing is just a different beast altogether. I don't even really think you could really talk about it. I don't really know what you say about the holiday special. But anyways, we're doing the Ewok TV movies. That's our lead up to The Last Jedi. Jeff, did that tickle your fancy or...
Harry, you never disappoint. I'll say that.
No, but did you anticipate that was what I was going to say? Or?
No, it was not. I wasn't sure, and then earlier today, I'm like, it's Christmas time. What if he does the holiday special? So,
well, I've got something.
Thank you.
I've got something different for a lead up for episode 9, and I'll spoil it now. It's not the holiday special.
He's already planning ahead.
I'm already planning ahead. I already know what I'm doing. But anyways,
All right.
That's something different. So,
all right. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Now you got to leave me on the hook for 2 years for that one, you dick. So thanks a lot.
Hey, man, that's what I do.
That's what you do. And I'd be disappointed if you didn't. So, okay, guys. Well, thanks again for joining in. We'll talk to you next time for the Ewok Adventures. Thanks, everybody, and see you then.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys will join us. So,
Wouldn't miss
that doesn't sound promising, Jeff.
Wouldn't miss it.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you guys.
All right.